Over the last few days, we have now begun to really absorb what has been going on with the storming of the U.S. Capitol. And it is important to say that there's a lot to go through. What we saw today was not something that was so much of an aberration of the political scene in the United States. The fact that people stormed Capitol Hill and tried to take it over is certainly a unique situation. But the essence behind it is not. For many decades, there has been a straight up fascist streak running through the right wing in America, and even those among liberals as well. This has always been lying under the surface, being dog whistled, not being proudly put out in front, like the days when you could call somebody a Nazi and it would shame them, and they would angrily denounce the accusation that they were. But we're at a time today where when you call one of these people a Nazi or a racist or a white supremacist or a white nationalist, they're not offended by it, nor do they even really deny it. Because this has always been there, under the surface. And as much as some people want to claim that it's something new, that it's something unique, it most certainly is not. This is something that's been festering for a long time, probably festering since the end of the Second World War. I think it maybe surprises some people to find out that America was always a racist country. At its very core, and even in most of the substance, most of the people that make up the United States, including many liberals, always were racist. But somehow we're to believe that this is some kind of political abstraction, some kind of exception to the rule. Maybe the form in the terms of an insurrection, but not in the substance. The racism, the white nationalism, the conspiracy theory mindset. This has always been the case. It's not new. The only thing that's new is its manifestation. The storming of this whole Capitol Hill reminds us exactly how dangerous these people really are, and the threat that they pose not just to the public, but to high-ranking public servants as well. They are willing to do this. They are willing to use violence. And this kind of reflects back on something that I once said talking about third worldism. People in America are more likely to build a fascist state or go into a race war than they are into revolution. I think we saw that. And there are some who say, look at this violence that happened today. This proves that Americans are willing to stand up and fight. This shows that there is a revolutionary potential in America, a willingness to fight the system. Such people are completely deluded. What we saw in those hours in which the Capitol was stormed was not a potential for communist revolution. This violence, which is probably greater than a more politically significant violence, greater than possibly BLM, because BLM never attacked the Capitol building, was completely right-wing. It was completely fascist. Literally, people were walking around with shirts that said 6 million wasn't enough. Or people literally running around waving swastikas. They were literally calling for BLM to be killed. They ran through a government building calling for elected officials to be executed. This is nothing like anything the left has done. In fact, there was nothing even remotely leftist about this. Not that I'm claiming that they think this is leftist, but the potential for leftist is not there. This is only manifesting itself on the right. And it's nothing short of delusional to think that somehow this willingness to use violence also reflects on the left. It's laughable. This is complete wishful thinking. This is the hopium. That's a common phrase that's now being used around many internet circles. So we shouldn't be confused by this. Nobody came up here demanding a better life. Nobody came up here demanding a stimulus check. Nobody came up there demanding that the banks pay their fair share or that Jeff Bezos pay his taxes. They went up there on anger and hate-fueled conspiracy theories. And these levels of violence, which are the ones that are significant, were based on that. Not even a desire to change the system, but to keep some closet fascist into power, as I put into Twitter. This is like the French Revolution, except they're trying to keep the king and make the king starve them. Idiot Bastille Day. Not for a second should we entertain the foolish idea that this somehow has something to do with a supposed revolutionary potential in America. We saw the opposite. We saw potential in reactionary revolution. And if you cannot separate the potential between the two, if you think one has potential so the other one automatically does, I don't think you understand what's going on here. So I think I've made my point there. Now, we've seen this act denounced by the mainstream media, saying, look, even the capitalists don't like Trump. Well, how could they? His actions basically almost got the system overthrown. Imagine what would have happened if those clerks hadn't had the foresight or the quick thinking to take those ballots with them when they fled. What would have happened if these terrorists had gotten a hold of them? What would have happened to the vote then? Let's be honest, the bourgeoisie did not want this to happen. That is why there were so many Republican politicians who proceeded to turn on Trump because of this. People who had been longtime supporters abandoned him because this, in the eyes of the bourgeoisie, which is what I'm referring to, is unacceptable. He became a threat to that system. More so than anyone in the history of the United States. No one's been a bigger threat. Not even leftist groups or leftist leaders in the history of the United States posed as much of a danger to the system than Trump did on that day. The best we've ever managed in the U.S. was, W.E. Du Bois almost got elected 100 years ago. We had a couple of uprisings that challenged the system, challenged the way it functioned, but didn't threaten its life. That's what did happen here. And let's be honest, this happened because of Trump's ego. He wants. This isn't something the system wanted. This isn't something the bourgeoisie wanted. This is something Trump wanted. Something he has fomented for almost a year. This is not something that escalated quickly, but something that had been growing for some time. And the bourgeoisie hold a great deal of responsibility for what happened, not just Trump, because they let him run around like a megalomaniac, making these statements, running things, going out into the public to whip up all of this sentiment, this vile hatred, this racism and fascism. Now, that fascism was always there. But he was the one who brought it to the fore. He didn't change America in that regard. He made America show its face. Now, I hate to break it to some people, but apparently a country founded, literally, on genocide and slavery isn't exactly the most progressive thinking country. That was entirely reactionary and backward, even at the time in which America was formed. And this has been the way it has acted. You can go on to this, the sharecroppers, Jim Crow, racist Southern sheriffs, etc. And there's so many other examples, annexing of Mexican land, all of that. All of that historically has made the United States what it is and contributed to what it is today. Imperialism is a phenomenon, a stage of monopoly capital. But we cannot deny the racism and fascism that America is today, because that's its basis, that's its foundation. It's been displaying this the entire time, and a lot of people just didn't want to hear it. Oh, this isn't America, this isn't the real America. Yeah, it is. This is what America is. This is what it has always been. And this is what it will always be. It is not until the system is removed, up from the roots, what the word radical means, to the roots, dig the whole system up and replace it with a new one. A whole new system that functions entirely differently. One that is not predicated on war and prejudice and profits. But even then, I have little optimism for a revolutionary America. Think about it. These fascists who are willing to storm the Capitol building, that's not the roots of America, that's the soil. So even if you do bring in that better system with new roots, this is the soil it gets planted in. And how do you think one's going to affect the other? I think in this case there's too many variables to completely predict what would happen. But I don't think it's going to be very good. It's not going to be the hope that a lot of people think it's going to be. The bourgeoisie realize what a terrible situation they're in right now. They are staring down the barrel of a gun, more than one gun. Climate change, economic crisis, social unrest. And I think that's important. And I think they know that. They know how bad things are starting to get. Look at it this way. If you Google how long does an empire last, a guy, a British expert, I can't remember his name, it's like Clog or something like that. He said most empires last 250 years before they collapse, before they've reached the length that they can grow before they collapse, or as we would say, reach the limits of their internal contradictions. It's worth noting that America is 245 years old. Is that significant? I think so. I mean, this is the average. Maybe America is going to be the exception, because it is the most advanced empire that's ever existed, so maybe it'll last longer. But in either case, the average is right there before us, and it's not looking very good for the U.S. empire. The elite of the bourgeoisie know what they're dealing with. They know that the days of the empire may be over. And they're afraid, because all their wealth and privilege, all their self-perceived right to superiority over other people are entirely built on the premise of that empire. The idea that they shouldn't have to contribute to society while they just milk it for their own pleasure, their own hedonistic, selfish desires. And Jeffrey Epstein should not be seen as some kind of exception, but maybe the rule that's been there the whole time. I mean, why not? Is it so unrealistic to think that they might be that way? They could start wars that kill millions of people to line their own pockets. What makes you think they have any soul or any compassion or any humanity when it comes to kids? They can create a system in which 2,000, upwards of, I believe it is about 2,000 children die from hunger-related reasons every day across the world. They can already create a system that does that, and they don't care. Capitalism kills 10 million people a year, and they already don't care. It doesn't mean anything to them. So it makes you think they have a soul or a conscience somewhere else. I guess each individual member of the bourgeoisie can draw the line somewhere. Somewhere they finally realize that they have a conscience, or maybe to be more metaphysical about it, a soul. But regardless, this is the situation that we're looking at. Once the wannabe Emperor Trump is out of office, this isn't over. Banning him from social media is a step towards the bourgeoisie silencing someone who is a threat to the system. This isn't something we should cheer on or even denounce. It's fun to laugh at Trump being denounced, being banned from social media. And I think it's foolish to stand there and say, well, we shouldn't celebrate it because they're going to come after us next. Of course they're going to come after us next. As soon as we present any kind of threat to the system, of course they're going to do it. Whether or not you ban Trump, whether or not you defend or oppose Trump being banned from social media is completely irrelevant, because your actions don't have any consequence on them. They don't ban people just because it's popular. They do it because the person poses a threat to the established order. And that is what Trump did, was pose a threat by creating these psychopaths that stormed the Capitol. And the fact that you or I haven't been banned yet only means one thing. We're not a threat to the system. I can make as many news videos as you want, but the system doesn't look at me as a threat. They don't care about me. It's the same way as they don't really care about you. So, if you want to cheer Trump being banned, by all means. I'm having a good time laughing at him. But to say that, we shouldn't cheer this on because then you're just encouraging censorship, you don't have an effect on what the bourgeoisie choose to be censored. Doesn't make a difference. They're going to censor what it is that they feel is a threat, and whether or not you cheer it on is completely immaterial. They can turn around tomorrow and censor everybody. You could get a U.S. version of the Great Firewall tomorrow, and they have every power to do it. And what you think about it, whether or not you support it or against it, doesn't mean anything. They're going to do it anyway. If they want it, they're going to do it. If they want to bad enough, they're going to do it. If they think there's enough of a threat, they're going to do it. Now, I've said a lot of things here about what's been happening, what's been going on, and all this, and there's still plenty more analysis of this event that can be made, but a lot of it simply from the bourgeois perspective, that this is, just the actions of Trump. This isn't America, blah, 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 threat to freedom, threat to democracy, to which we would respond, what democracy do you speak of? And I can go into the whole history of the United States and the lack of democracy in the country. Only rich white landowners being allowed to vote. Poor people weren't allowed to vote. And when they put the polling station 10 miles away. Not the polling station, the ballot 10 miles away from where you were, so you had to travel by days by horse in order to get to a place to vote, which you couldn't do because you couldn't afford the time off to do it. See, the whole thing of history, why the United States is not a democracy, I don't have to tell you that. But the bourgeoisie seem to just forget that. If they forget all these things, then they would like you to forget as well. So there's much bourgeois analysis to be made. But I think in the end it's completely irrelevant because it doesn't change anything for us. And it's just their unique perspective to their unique outlook on the world, which may be useful, even entertaining. But in the end, you didn't watch my video for that. You watched my video for a Marxist analysis. And as usual, I'm the guy you watch to hear what you don't want to hear, but it's true anyway. This isn't some benefit to us as a revolutionary potential or a symbol of, see, Americans are willing to fight. I mean, if you think that all Americans are like this, I mean, that the left is somehow as emboldened and as these people, you're foolish. And if you think that this is a symbol that they can be that way, you're nuts. You're deluding yourself. You see what you want to see. You hear what you want to hear. You believe what you want to believe. Because you need to believe that America is somehow good or righteous in the end. I don't care how patriotic you are. The most blind patriotic faith in a bad system still leaves you with a bad system. And one that you're going to end up continuing regardless. Because you have some twisted idea that you can save it. America doesn't need to be saved. It needs to go away. And that's a point that a lot of people, increasing numbers of Americans, American leftists, are thinking. They're thinking it can be saved, it can be changed, but I'm telling you right now, it can't be. In a manner of speaking, you are going to have to acknowledge the fact that the empire has to come to an end. You're not going to reform it. You're not going to vote somebody in to change it. You're not going to push Biden left or anyone else. And speaking of that, this idea that you're going to push the Democrats left, wasn't this something people argued in the 1920s? That pretty much has been proven to not be a thing you can do for the past, 100 years or so. But we've still got enough rad libs on the Democratic payroll to try to push this nonsense. There's a reason why history has always changed through violence. It's not a coincidence. But in the end, we should always look at the situation. See what's happened. Try to learn from it. Because if Marxism is to be the science of revolution, the science of change, we should keep adding to the amount of knowledge that we have to create new theories, expand upon those we have. Because that's what science is. Science is not static. It is constantly growing and evolving. And this idea of stopping at the idea that, we can just change America. It's no different than the bad liberal belief that America's some kind of abusive boyfriend. I can change him. I can save him. Trust me. You can't. America's an empire for a reason. But I suppose this is a good time if you're an accelerationist. Because this would certainly be something along the lines of acceleration, if you want to put it that way. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think it's necessarily good for accelerationism right now, but From the viewpoint of accelerationists, it would be. But I think in the end, we need to buckle up. Because this is about to get a lot worse. Because I don't think this is over. The FBI, state troopers, etc., are all preparing for something similar to happen on Inauguration Day. And all the little right-wing tools are all preparing for something to take place on Election Day. Because I think a lot of people just simply have forgotten what Lenin said. Fascism is capitalism and decay. And I don't think there's anybody on the left right now who could deny that capitalism is in decay in the U.S. The U.S. empire, in general, is in decay. And that is where we are. And we should not forget these words by Lenin.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.